President Joe Biden decided to release some more oil from America's strategic reserves because we don't really need those. There is no need for oil and no strategy, apparently, from the Biden administration. We've got several clips from him as he mumbles through a justification for continuing to not drill and release oil. We have this clip where he is explaining that his administration was always a big proponent of oil. Joe Biden says, oh no, we didn't stop any domestic production of energy. Don't be ridiculous. And I need to set the record straight. But we still do need to release some more oil because we don't have any.
We're calling it a ready and release plan. This allows us to move quickly to prevent oil price spikes and respond to international events. Secondly, we need to responsibly increase American oil production without delaying or deferring our transition to clean energy. Let's debunk some myths here. My administration has not stopped or slowed U.S. oil production.
What?
Quite the opposite. We're producing 12 million barrels of oil per day. And by the end of this year, we will be producing 1 million barrels a day, more than the day in which I took office. In fact, we're on.
This guy just lied to all of America directly through his teeth to all of us. You may remember that one of the first things that Joe Biden did when he was elected was cancel the Keystone Pipeline. Here is the executive order from January 20th, 2021 from Joe Biden canceling the Keystone Pipeline. He said that we are not doing anything to cut back on domestic production of oil. We have done nothing to interfere with energy supply. But when we scroll down to the bottom of this executive order, we see that in Section 6, he is very explicit about making dramatic changes. Right here, Section 6 from Biden's executive order that he issued on day one is revoking the March 2019 permit for the Keystone XL pipeline. Pretty important pipeline that had a permit. On March 29, 2019, President Trump granted the Trans-Canada Keystone Pipeline a presidential permit to construct, connect, operate, and maintain pipeline facilities at the international border of U.S. and Canada. Now, this president says the following: the permit is hereby revoked in accordance with Article 1. He says, in 2015, following an extensive review of all of these things, the report tells us that there was very limited significance of any energy production from this ordeal, from this pipeline. And they concluded that, in fact, it undermines, if we have this pipeline built, it undermines the U.S. climate leadership. How? By undercutting the credibility and the influence of the United States in urging other countries to take ambitious climate action. So this is what will the other kids think of me argument. Well, if I buy that, if I wear that shirt, if I drive that car, the other kids are going to think of me like a loser. So we can't do it. So, okay, I guess we just don't have energy then. And hopefully they still like us, though. He says climate change has a growing effect on the economy and weather are wrecking all of us. The world must be put on a sustainable energy path. He says the Keystone Pipeline deserves the U.S. interest because we're facing a climate crisis. There it is. The crisis must be met on scale. At home, we're going to combat this with ambitious plans to build back better. And we got to cut down on our gas consumption. Leaving the Keystone Pipeline in place is not consistent with my economic or climate imperatives. So the president, right, he just detailed about one executive order that revoked the pipeline permit. So his administration literally on day one came in and they canceled an entire infrastructure project that would have helped America and Canada develop oil. But he will sit here to us and lie to all of our faces because he can get away with it, evidently. Keystone Pipeline canceled on day one. Since Joe Biden took office, the United States has not been doing so hot with its oil management. This is from the Strategic Oil Reserves. Bloomberg has the graph. You can see what this looks like as we enter the Biden era. By October, the oil piggy bank is looking pretty empty. The U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve will shrink to a 40-year low as the White House taps into it to put a lid on global oil prices. And you can just see what the chart looks like. Looks pretty dang bad. Down to about 350 million barrels. Joe Biden just said it's going down even further. He's going to be releasing another 15 million barrels as the strategic reserves continue to plummet under the president's lack of leadership. Not looking so good. But Trump had this puppy solved back when he was in charge. There wasn't much of a strategic reserve issue when Donald Trump was in power. Here he is with some very interesting people flanking his sides. You may remember this guy, Fauci. As Donald Trump announces, we're pretty full up on gas. We bought a bunch of it at a great price, and the tanks are full.
Based on the price of oil, I've also instructed the Secretary of Energy to purchase, at a very good price, large quantities of crude oil for storage in the U.S. Strategic Reserve. We're going to fill it right up to the top.
That's right, baby.
Saving the American taxpayer billions and billions of dollars, helping our oil industry and making us even further toward that wonderful goal which we've achieved, which nobody thought was possible, of energy independence. It puts us in a position that's very strong, and we're buying it at the right price.
Pretty good deal back then. Gas was a lot cheaper. We had less threats of nuclear annihilation. Seemed to have some supply chain issues, but not too terrible. But Trump said we were going to fill it up. We got it at the best price. That's what we do. Now the current administration is selling all of that oil, releasing all of it because it's election season and they do not want to lose. But things were better under competent leadership. Karine Jean Pierre was also asked about this because the Democrats put a major speed bump in front of Trump when he tried to do all of that. Karine Jean Pierre asked about the refilling of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Trump tried to do this. The Democrats interfered with that. Trump was going to get a very good price, buy it very low, but now it's a lot more expensive and it's going to be very high. So do the Democrats regret stonewalling Trump?
In 2020, when Congress was debating funding for replenishing the SPR at a low price, Democrats blocked it, saying that it was a bailout for big oil. But now President Biden said today that it would be a good
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about when Donald Trump was trying to sell it at $20 per barrel to buy it. Look, it was a different time then. It was not the same situation that we are currently in.
It was a different time. Yeah, the country was in a lot more stable position. Didn't have several prospective world wars brewing. We didn't have catastrophic limitations on domestic production. We had more of a secured border than we do now. Things seem to be a little bit better, and things are different. She's acknowledging that, but I'm not sure she recognizes the cause of these differences. Seems like it might be her administration. We'll see if that ever rings the bell for her. I doubt it. Now, the president was asked whether this was political. Obviously, it is. It's October. Mr. President, it is October. You're releasing more gasoline. It feels like you're trying to kind of goose your numbers before the election comes around. Is that true, sir?
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
President, what is your response?
I don't hear. Can you speak louder?
What is your response to Republicans who say you are only doing this SPR release to help Democrats in the midterms?
Where have they been the last 4 months? That's my response.
Is it politically motivated, sir? This
No,
move
it's not.
3 weeks before the midterms?
Look, it makes sense. I've been doing this for how long now?
A long time. You've been doing it a long time.
It's not motivated at all. It's motivated to make sure that I continue to push on what I've been pushing on.
What?
And that is making sure there's enough oil that's being pumped by the companies so that we have the ability to be able to produce enough gas that we need here at home, oil we need here at home, and at the same time, keep moving in the direction of providing for alternative energy. That's what I've been doing.
Not really.
Now, the problem is these guys are asleep. I don't know where they've been. And they seem, the price at the pump should reflect what the price of a barrel of oil costs. And it's not going down consistently.
Where have the Republicans been? Asleep, which I think is actually accurate. Where have they been? We haven't heard from them on really anything. including the border, gas, Ukraine. I mean, we do hear from them on Ukraine. They just, every time there's like more money to send over there, they're all very animated about that. But if we talk about J6, if we talk about elections, if we talk about the border, if we talk about inflation, if we talk about all these other issues, they're all sort of disunified. There's no strategic conversation about any of this. But the president is a liar regardless. Biden said that we are doing what we can to increase production and get more oil in people's cars and in their homes and solve this energy problem. Problem with that is that's not true at all. Biden canceled the Keystone XL pipeline his first day in office, something that a lot of people put a lot of time into. And when you have that sort of flip-flopping, when you turn it on, turn it off, when the president now, the guy who just shut down a big portion of the production, when he says, we're going to turn it back on again, none of the oil companies want to invest in that promise. They take a look at this and they say, you're a liar because you just lied. You just shut us down. Now you're telling us to turn it back on. And you have to imagine, right, in order to build a pipeline that travels across an entire country, there's time and money and investment that goes into that. And it takes years to ramp up. So for him to come in on day one and try to signal this big victory and try to be the cool kid to all the other cool kids out there in the World Economic Forum and over there in Europe, he really hamstrung the United States. And now he's trying to have it both ways. Turn around and say, I never did any of that stuff. Yes, you did. The chickens are coming home to roost for him and unfortunately the rest of America while he continues to lie through his teeth towards the rest of us. We have Stacey Abrams also is chiming in on this. You know, the Democrats are facing the consequences. The gas prices are going up. Oil, energy crises are all big, big problems. But there is a solution. If inflation prices are hitting your pocketbooks a little too hard, Stacey Abrams, who's running for governor in Georgia, has a solution. You know, kids are very expensive these days. And if the costs start getting higher and higher and higher, you can probably just deal with it by getting an abortion, I guess.
I just asked you. You're running for governor of Georgia. I would assume, maybe incorrectly, but while abortion is an issue, it nowhere reaches the level of interest of voters in terms of the cost of gas, food, bread,
Obviously.
milk, things like that. What can a governor, what could you do as governor to alleviate the concerns of Georgia voters about those livability, daily, hourly issues that they're confronted with?
But let's be clear. Having children is why you're worried about your price for gas. It's why you're concerned about how much food costs. For women, this is not a reductive issue. You can't divorce being forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy from the economic realities of having a child.
Very expensive.
And so it's important for us to have both and conversations. We don't have the luxury of reducing it or separating them out, but we also have to talk about what a governor can do. A governor can address housing prices. A governor can address the cost of education. A governor can put money into the pockets of everyday hardworking Georgians instead of giving tax cuts to the wealthy. That's what I talk about on the trail, and that's what's resonating. But let's not pretend that women, half the population, especially those of childbearing age, they understand that having a child is absolutely an economic issue. It is only politicians who see it as simply another cultural conversation. It is a real biological and economic imperative conversation that women need to have.
Very expensive. You know, those babies, formula and all sorts of diapers, and you've got to get the clothes and they grow out of them and all the stuff that I hear other parents complaining about that, you know, I'm not having to deal with at the moment. But they are saying that simple solution. Just abort them. Just get rid of them. Abort them. Oh, honey. Gosh, I'm 4 months pregnant right now, but grocery prices are going up and I really want that new big screen TV, but I don't know that we can afford it because we've got this baby coming. What should we do? Husband says, oh my gosh, you know, I was listening to this great new governor. She's running for Georgia. She said it's very simple. All you have to do is just go get an abortion. And she's going to fight for us to do that. You know, oh yeah, that's going to save us like several $1,000s a month. No problem at all. Economic interests from Stacey Abrams. Very interesting woman. And we'll see how that works out for her with the voters over there in Georgia, because it doesn't sound like it's that great of a strategy. But Karine Jean Pierre was asked about this. Hey, Karine, is the abortion to reduce the harm of inflation a good strategy? Stacey Abrams sort of recommended that to many constituents in Florida. What do you think about that over there at the White House?
One more that folds in the president's top domestic priorities. In Georgia, the president's endorsed candidate for governor, Stacey Abrams, is suggesting that one way to mitigate the effects of inflation is to get an abortion. Does President Biden agree?
I did not see her comments on this, so I don't know the context of this. Again, I want to be careful because this is a political debate, and it's related to a midterm, an election. I'm not going to comment on that.
Oh, give me a break. That's Karine Jean Pierre saying, we're in the middle of an election season, so, I can't comment on that because we could be violating some ethical rules on elections. We're not supposed to interfere with that type of stuff. But it's kind of a just general policy question. Biden is causing a lot of inflation. Biden's fighting for abortions. Is it possible that those two are related? Inflation's going up and maybe abortions go up to deal with the rising inflation. So it's a policy question. It's not an election question. Karine, yes or no? Do you think it is a good strategy? You just got a bunch of people hearing aids. Maybe people want abortions. Maybe that'll help with your bad policies. But great question, of course, as usual, from Peter Ducey saying, you have anything to say about this? And she just very conveniently, no, haven't seen it as usual. We have another one from Kari Lake. Biden's inflation is hitting everybody, even Kari Lake. She was in Arizona at a campaign rally, and she was communicating that her friends and everybody else around her are noticing this. Their retirement accounts evaporating. Costs are going up all across the board. She says she's going to do something about it.
Many of you in this room, and I know more than a few of you because I'm feeling it, and I'm not retired yet, are looking at your retirement savings, and it's like a scary Halloween movie.
Gone.
I just talked to my neighbor. He said, I am so concerned how I'm going to make it through my retirement. He's on the front end of his retirement. He said a third of his retirement savings has dried up under Joe Biden. We can't continue along these lines. And until we can vote that bumbling fool out of the White House, we got to have a governor who's going to stand up for us.
Yes. Get it, Kari Lake.
And that's why last week we unveiled our plan. It truly is a plan to help fight the inflation that Joe Biden has created by returning $500 million of your hard-earned money back to you. We're going to reduce and get rid of the grocery tax and the rental tax. So if you pay rent, you won't have to pay tax on that.
Cut those taxes, baby.
Somebody said, well, this isn't going to help every single Arizona. It's going to help a lot of Arizonans. We're going to send $500 million back into your pockets.
Right on.
And that's just the start. We're going to work every single year to cut taxes. And you know why we're going to do that? Because one of my heroes, Ronald Reagan, did precisely that. When he was handed a terrible economy under Jimmy Carter, and it was thrown into his lap, he said, we're not going to raise taxes. That's what the Democrats want to do. Raise taxes. We're going to lower taxes. He took a situation where we had stagflation. It was just a constant increase in inflation that was not going away, and he gave us tax relief, and that is what helped bring down the inflation and really saved us back in the 1980s. So
right on, Kari Lake, running for Arizona governor, has some promises for the Arizona constituents, and maybe she runs for president at some point in time after she delivers a victory here. But that, my friends, is it for the segment here. Biden draining our oil reserves, wrecking the country in the meantime. We will, of course, continue to cover it. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this and leaving a like before you jump onto the next video. I look forward to seeing you there.